evening and welcome to the October 1st, 2025 meeting of the Goffstown Economic Development Council. If you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I think we'll do a roll call starting with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Oscar Revelo, member.
Chet Bowen, Chair.
Dick Bruno, Vice Chair.
Pete Georgiantis, Selectman's Rep.
Sylvia Von Aulock, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission Representative.
Thank you. Thank you. So I know we don't have minutes. We can do that next month and approve them. Joanne, I know that we had talked about making this a brainstorming session. Is there anything else at all that you wanted to go through?
The only other thing, I didn't know if anyone had any follow-up with the touching base with the not homeowners, with property owners of that vacant property list.
I did not get any calls back beyond what happened last month.
And that's the same thing. What I reported last month.
Okay.
I don't know if Sam had anything.
Yeah, she didn't say. Probably not if she did. She probably would say.
Okay. So Joanne won't be with us for the next few months. Joanne, good luck with everything you have going on.
Yeah.
I hope that that's okay. But we will have Sylvia here in place of you. We're just going to go through some ideas over the next few months so that hopefully when you return we have some planning that goes into what we do each meeting and get something done. So I appreciate you bringing in these ideas. I don't know if anyone, I think Sylvia, you said you already had this, but for those of you looking through it the first time, I know these are some of them. I've seen them before, and open the floor to any other ideas that people want to talk about.
Could I just ask, where did these come from? Is this just over the years?
Just over the course of time, I've just been putting these together.
Okay.
So there's, as you know, we have a Facebook group, or a Facebook page, I should say. The problem with it is, and maybe you all could help with that, is if you've all liked it already, is to share it with your friends, share it with businesses, whatever, share it as much as you possibly can, because we don't have a large number of followers right now. And I have shared the last few posts that I've put up there, I have shared with a few Goffstown groups, so I'm hoping that people that are in those groups will see it and possibly share it with others. There were 2 ribbon cutting ceremonies in the past few weeks that I was able to get photographs of, and I put those up there, and you know, they had people like them, but I mean, we need a bigger, if we're going to make this work, we need to have a bigger presence of the community.
Has it been only, businesses, what's been taking place at businesses, like ribbon cutting, or can we, get some of this information that maybe we just...
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just that. Certainly you don't want to put up there something that has nothing to do with the town, but...
No, if something came out of our meetings that was significant that could be public, because not everybody's going, obviously, to look at the minutes of EDC.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I think that...
What did Kelly used to do after your select board meetings? What did she call that?
I guess synopsis.
Three things you should...
3 points or 3.
Oh, yeah.
She used to have the 3 points.
3
She
things
picked
you
out
should
3
know,
things.
or something like that,
Huh?
she called it? Did she call it something like
3 things to
you
know,
should
I believe, or something
3
like
things
that.
to know.
Yeah, they came out of your select board meeting.
Yeah, she would pick the three of the important things. Now, when you said share, have you shared this with all the town committees?
So only the people that I'm friends with on Facebook, obviously, I can't, I didn't look up everyone's Facebook page to share it to them, but
Parks and Rec has a Facebook page, the DPW has a Facebook page.
I've shared it with a few, but not all, so I can do that too with other departments. My problem is right now, I was told today or yesterday that when I'm on short-term disability, which will be 2 weeks after I leave, that I cannot do any work whatsoever. I can't even read an email. So I'm limited in all of this. So I can, do what I can before I leave, but I won't be able to do anything while I'm gone. So maybe you guys could try to just share it around to different organizations or whatever, and try and, get some more followers
Mhm. For sure.
while I'm gone, and then obviously I'll pick it up when I get back.
Maybe, I'm not the one to do it, but maybe somebody that's more adept of one of us can do like Kelly
Yeah.
did after our meetings and anything significant. I'll be happy to try it. Well, I might mess it up.
Can I ask, Joanne, are you the one who provides new information on the Facebook page?
So the way, yes, and the way they set it up is, so if you go either on my phone or in my computer, my own Facebook and this Facebook page, the town set it up this way, is like, it's not really one and the same, but they're partners.
merged?
They're partners,
Yep.
so if I go, I have two that I can choose from, and I go switch, and it goes to one, I go switch back, and it goes to the other one.
So no one else could update the Facebook page but you?
You can
Unless,
share it.
I don't know how that works, I don't know
No, you're
enough
correct.
about
You're
that.
correct, because the way that Facebook verifies that you're a real person, not just making up, like I
It'll
represent
go to her
Goffstown,
phone.
you have to have someone verified, so you went through that process. So yes, that is true. The other person updated it. In the meantime, we can certainly share it and share what
But
we have.
if I post, like, I'll give you an example, if I post something on my own page while I'm out,
Mhm.
and I can share that to EDC, then you guys can pick it up from there and
But you,
share it further.
you can't
Well, I could,
work while you're gone, you've just said that.
but I can post on my own page.
I think you're playing with fire.
Oh, I would disagree. I'm sure she could sit there and watch it on TV, anybody could watch it on TV.
That's true.
And they could post it on their own Facebook page, and then it could be shared from that page. So I disagree with what you're saying, that she's playing with fire. I think that's very open. If you, just like any citizen
Yeah,
can sit there, watch it on TV,
Okay.
and post something on their page, and people do it all the time. The selectman did this, the selectman did that, and then
I'm
it's shared to
friends with
everybody
most
else.
of you. I can friend you.
Okay.
Yeah.
but
I
let
would
me,
fight that.
I just want to make it clear, you're the administrator for the
The
EDC
page.
Facebook page. Can you make somebody a co-administrator? Is that what, is that
Yeah,
a
that's kind of
thing?
what
I
I'm
did
wondering.
Is that a
not
thing?
Set this up, IT did,
You can
It's-
ask them,
it's-
because
it
I
is
know I
a-
have one for our men's group at church, it's like that, so. I don't know whether it's a town thing, it may not be the same, but
That might be a
If
good,
If we could.
pages are.
would that make more sense to go that way as a co-administrator?
Sure, but if she's watching the meeting at home and she sees something that the co-administrator may not have picked up on and they're not posted on, what would she say, what would you suggest, that she, text or email the, co-administrator and say, hey, I saw this and I think you should bring this out? Isn't that the same thing as posting it on her Facebook page?
I think that's worse.
Yeah,
Huh?
it
I think
is.
that's worse.
I don't know how a co-administrator works on Facebook. I do know that there's a verification, it takes some time, and with you leaving literally today, I'm not sure.
I'm leaving Monday.
Monday. So if I'm more than willing, you can, if you're still allowed to email me, I'm more than willing to do it.
Okay.
If there's a way, if you talk to IT and they can tell you how. I already had to be verified a long time ago when I ran. I was verified that way, so if that still exists, I'm more than willing to do that, and then whenever I am not chair anymore, we can pass that on to whoever.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense that the chair would do it. If anyone disagree with that?
No, that's what I was thinking, that somebody within this group have, take the responsibility of posting anything significant after the meetings. No? You're shaking your head, Peter.
I'm just thinking, you guys, she knows more than all of us together about what's going on.
Yeah.
And if she's watching the meeting at home as a citizen, which she's
No,
more
I
than
get-
welcome to do.
But yeah, I don't think we're saying replace
Yeah, no,
that
I-
option.
yeah.
She can still do that. I think we're just talking in the future, like having a co-administrator,
That's
so,
fine, but,
Yeah, if there was, because she's not gonna be,
I'm gonna question it on Monday night, don't worry, so,
I think it's a good idea.
So I'll be gone by then.
thank God.
But as far as the next couple of months, I do think it makes sense for us to come back to the table with some ideas about what we can do. I was, I think, pretty openly disheartened when I realized the absolute truth, that what I want to do would be, you know, the sewer expansion. It's going to take quite some time, and we shouldn't never talk about that again. But I think that it was not as, we don't have the amount of influence as I hoped we would have on being able to get that done. And I think he did a great job explaining why. So now that I understand it better, there are other things maybe we can do.
I did send Derek an email about contacting, what's his name, I can't think of his name now, the fellow who came,
From
From Liberty.
Liberty Utilities?
Mike, what was his name, Mike?
I
Or
thought
Matt,
it's some-
Matt, I think it was Matt. Anyway, because he did ask that question about the police and whether the town was interested in having the police department property hooked up to natural gas. So I don't know if he'll be bringing that to the select board or not.
No, I don't
but-
think we'd be doing, I wouldn't be doing anything right now until we decide what else is going on. Does it make sense to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
it sounds
agree.
like that's
You know,
the
it
only
doesn't-
option.
You know, we're talking about building a new building someplace, and whether it's there or someplace else,
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to pay to put
And
gas.
And I didn't listen to the presentation at the select board meeting on the new police station, so I don't know if the man who did the study, I think whatever, he was an architect or whatever, I don't know if he mentioned that natural gas was available, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's minor compared to
Yeah.
a $29 million
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Hooking that natural gas in is like minor.
I was wondering about that.
I'll continue to try to call the building it forward, because what I gathered from that meeting last month was that this would be a slow burn process, and small, like, approximations towards getting it all the way down to the school are what will have to happen, and that is clearly a years-long
Right,
project.
May I just
Go
say, I think that should be part of our goal, though.
Of course.
To be able to build, to increase that corridor. That's where I think, if you're gonna get any commercial base expansion, that's where it's going to be. And then you get, hopefully influence, some of our own municipal buildings, like the school as well. I know it's gonna take some time, but I think it should be one of the important goals to build on.
And
I
the
think
select-
you missed an important part.
What's
I
that?
don't think this committee communicated at all with our state reps about changing the laws about where they could build on commercial properties, but apartments and things either. And I think that's something that was, I think it seriously hurt Goffstown as far as economic development, when they can take a property that was zoned for commercial and now they can turn it into apartments.
Yeah.
And that, you know, there was no, I don't think this committee, I wasn't on the committee at the time, but I don't think this committee should have voiced their opinion to the state reps and saying, you know, as an economic development for Goffstown, we should support that commercial property instead of turning it into residential.
I did communicate with Joe.
Huh?
I did communicate with Joe.
You did, but this committee did not communicate with Joe. As a committee, that we should have communicated with, not just Joe, with the whole group of representatives from Goffstown, saying that, you know, this is not good for Goffstown. Or in our opinion, whether, I may be speaking, maybe you guys think it was a good idea to turn this commercial
No.
property into
Absolutely not,
residential,
no.
or, you know, apartments. So, but
Yeah,
we didn't do that.
We
Nobody.
did miss that. What we did instead, so that's, I'll take the blame on that, because what we did instead was I asked Joanne to bring anything zoning wise that was up for a variance that impacted that. I missed the bigger picture on that, and so I think going forward, we should look at that bigger picture at the state level
And we
as
need to
well.
keep an eye on what they're doing up at the state level
Yeah.
that affects our,
So I could give you a little background on moving forward from that.
and same thing with the county and what they do.
Is that, so the state law went, as you know, went through, and we also maybe are bringing it forward to the voters in March. That's still sort of up in the air, which doesn't really matter anyway. because
Bring what now?
The same
missed it.
article,
Okay,
but it doesn't matter because it's already a state law, so we have to abide by it. But there is a clause in there that says the town may add additional language, and this is where I think that they should put this before the voters, is that they could add additional language to say things like, well, there needs to be the proper infrastructure. So in other words, they have to have public water, public sewer. Not all of our commercial has that. And then it also says that you can require, or the planning board may require when they draft the article, is to include having the residential above retail space. So like, almost like the Main Street storefronts, so that you won't have just, say garden-style apartment buildings on the land, but there will also be some sort of commercial retail.
Now, that's something this committee should be putting together and sending to the,
Well,
Well, that's already part
That's
of
part
an
of
option
planning,
that the
right?
planning board can include
Okay,
in the
but-
warrant article.
this committee should be
Spawn saying it's a good
saying
idea.
this is a good idea.
So the first workshop.
yeah, push for that, you're saying push for that type of language change, and that would have to go
Yeah.
to
That
the
goes-
warrant? Is that
Well,
what
first it
you're saying?
No,
goes
it
to the
would go to-
planning board.
Yep.
And
No,
they
I
have-
mean, yeah, once it goes to the planning board, then they're the ones that can
They-
bring an article together?
To
is
the
it?
warrant, yes. And they
Okay.
have their first workshop meeting is November, do you remember the
Third-
date?
I wanna say third,
It's the first Thursday in November.
Okay.
it's the 6th. But I think Pete makes a good point. If this group supports what Joanne's already put together, and Joanne and I reviewed them all, just yesterday, which I think it was. But I think you make a good point that if this group supports, you can take a vote on it, that the first floor needs to be, commercial.
Retail commercial.
Yeah, a non-residential use.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think that would really help what Joanne's already put together.
Joanne, can we go back to what you said about that it has to have,
So it has to have the infrastructure to support residential, which would be, for multifamily, would be public sewer, public water.
so I must be misunderstanding, so that would mean they would be forced then to expand it.
No, so if residential wanted to go on commercial land.
Yep.
They could not do it without the public water, public sewer. They can't go in there and put in a well and septic. So for them to do public water, public sewer, they have to either choose a parcel that already has that, or, run the lines further down the road
Yeah,
to
that's what
expand
Chuck's saying,
into it.
they would have to expand, I think
Oh,
that's what you're saying.
expand the lines,
Yeah,
yes, I'm
That's
sorry.
that's a very limited amount of our property that has that issue, which is strictly pretty much up to your plumber and in that corner of
Yeah.
St. A's. All the way down Mass Road, they've got sewer and
You're
water.
right, that's what
But
I
then
was
like
gonna
on the
say.
back road, where's their commercial on the back road, commercially zoned?
It's the
Up to the
the
tower.
industrial park there where the towers
Okay,
were.
I think that's a
That's-
CIFZ district over there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That was part
So
of the properties
That wouldn't be included.
Right.
Um,
But I think what Peter's saying is the primary, the ones that I focus on is down that Mass Road corridor, which,
Already
that
has sewer and water.
that's there.
So then the
that's why it's
second-
gotta be, you gotta have some sort of
So
restriction
then the
on that.
second piece would be to have it be required on the second floor, or second or more floors.
For the
Somebody could
residential.
go into Shaw's Plaza and buy that plaza and put all
Yeah,
housing and their condos in there, or
because that's zoned
apartments.
commercial.
That's zone commercial. They could go in there, buy that piece of property, flatten it, put all,
And don't be
And-
surprised if they don't try to do that.
I mean, or even Rite Aid now, where the
Yeah.
Rite
Oh,
Aid's
yeah.
closed, they could do
Oh,
that there,
yeah, good point.
Yeah.
you know?
So-
So until,
So this kind of helps that along to keep a commercial use. So sort of nice mixed use kind of thing.
And it doesn't allow, when I worked in Hooksett, they had a lot of mixed-use zones, and some of them allowed residential and commercial, but they didn't have a requirement as to when each one needed to be built. So they didn't necessarily have to be on top of each other, they could be
Right.
separate buildings.
Right,
And so, of course, they went in and they built the residential,
right,
and then it was like, okay, well, when is the commercial coming?
right.
Oh, it's coming, and it never did.
Never
Never,
So,
never.
no. So, There are a lot of, like, the old Health Source building over there was just, there was just a court case about Brady Sullivan wanting to turn that entire building into apartments, and I think they won that case. I'm pretty sure they did.
Well, right now, the state's going along with anybody that has, trying to build family units or
Yeah,
apartments.
housing, right? That's-
Housing, so they're gonna overrule, just like they did with us originally, overruled our zoning to allow the 24 condos. Since then, the law's been changed, yes, but at the time, our zoning laws, our zoning department was overruled by the state.
And it's not that we don't need housing, we do, but we need affordable housing, and we need housing where, you know, the rents aren't $2,500 a month, where most of these projects that are being built, or even the development down in Pinardville now, the new one.
The new one at 114 over
Yes.
14A?
Oh, I just saw that, yeah.
I saw they're having an open house this weekend, and I saw the prices. They're 3 bedrooms, but they're very tiny bedrooms.
I'm sure.
And they're going for over 5 and 600,000
Wow,
for
amazing.
those units.
Isn't it amazing?
It is amazing. So, also, I mean, I think, if I may, just say that we have to get something in front of the planning board with regard to what our feelings are with regard to what the state law is, right? I mean, that would have to come as a committee to send something, a letter or notice to them.
You can send a memo to the
I
board.
think we need to be able to read that, what it says before we jump on board and say yes.
Yeah,
So
well, we
if it's
have
out
it.
there, it needs to come to us for an opinion or, you know,
Input,
and
yeah.
then, so we can do it, but just saying it here doesn't really, we don't really know what we're looking at.
The problem is, you will have time, because that meeting is not until November, so Sylvia has all of that, well, she will have the most recent draft before I leave.
Okay.
She has the draft right now, so she'll have all of that, and she can send it to all of you, make sure she has your email addresses.
Now,
And then,
do we think that it would be advisable for this group to, because if they're having this work session on November 6th, I don't know that this group's meeting again before the 6th, so maybe you can at least support the concept. I mean, it's very simple language.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but the reason I was asking about the sewer and the gas was because that could be a barrier on the west side of Mast. If it's like, if you want to do this, even if you're residential, you want this commercial, it could be a barrier to that commercial spot. So I do want to read, to Pete's point, I want to read the whole entire thing and make sure it all makes sense.
you don't necessarily need natural gas, you need public water and public sewer.
Public water, public sewer, okay.
You can have propane tanks, you can have oil, heat,
Mhm.
natural gas is not a requirement.
Okay. But still, they would, on the west side, there would be necessary for them to have the water, right? So they'd have to expand the sewer to get to some of those spots, the commercial spots. Am I not right on that?
Yes,
Where sewer is
where
available, is that
sewer
what you're saying?
can be extended.
Okay, so that's why I want to read it though, because I'm finding myself confused about, is it
Let
a
me-
requirement or does it just have to be,
Why don't
can be
I
extended?
email you the bill
That'd be great,
tomorrow?
yeah.
And then you can read it for yourselves, and then Sylvia can follow up with the actual
When-
warrant article.
When does that bill go into effect?
It-
Because I'm
It
wondering,
go-
what
it
happens
doesn't-
in,
Well, that's the other thing, it doesn't go into effect until spring of 2026.
Okay,
okay,
But
Which is 6 months from now.
because
Yeah,
we
it's not
only
long.
get a chance to vote once a year, we have to vote on it in March, and then it'll say, the effective date will be listed.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but if a developer, let's say, came in tomorrow and said they're buying that property, the Shaw's Plaza, they're gonna put apartments in and they have a plan, I mean, I know they have to do conceptuals, I know all of that, but what's the case there? Is that a grandfathered situation? Do you,
If there's a proposal, if it comes before the conceptual comes before, you can't change the law once.
Right.
Well,
That's-
because
that's
the law's
just
not in
saying, what
effect
if?
yet, they'd have to abide by our regulations
Current.
as of today.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good thing, that we're gonna get it on the books before it goes into effect.
We do meet the
Otherwise-
night before November 6th, so if we do read it and come together that night,
Well, the other option, I'm happy to come. The other option is you have your, whatever your November meeting would be,
The fifth.
but
The
to, on December 11th is the first zoning amendment. That's when they actually are
Public hearing.
going, that's their first public hearing. The work session is on that 6th, so you guys meet on the 5th. Okay.
We wanna have our opinion during the work session. That's my feelings.
yep,
They
I
should have-
agree.
As they're working,
I
as they're
agree.
working to build in this article,
yep.
they should have our opinion.
I agree.
I would hope so. I think that really makes sense. Do you think, Joanne, there's any other amendment that this committee might be interested in?
There's several on the ADUs, I don't know how you feel about those, but currently you can have one attached ADU, and the zoning board has granted several variances to allow people to have them, say you had a detached garage with a upstairs, you know, there are people that have received variance approval for that. But the new bill allows you by right to have a attached or a detached, as long as you meet the setbacks.
Mhm.
You do not have to have a connecting door unless the owner wants to have a connecting door. If, say if their elderly parent was living there and they want to be able to go back and forth without going outside. Currently, we have a limit of 800 square feet. The state has increased that to 950, but the town needs to vote on it whether or not they want it to increase to 950.
So from an economic development perspective, is there any, do we have,
Yeah,
I
was gonna
can't
say,
see
I
anything
don't
that
think
we,
it has anything to do with it.
No, but it just helps the housing market, the housing.
It's more of a residential thing.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
which allows additional employees to be able to live in town, because ADUs are typically smaller and more affordable.
Just an aside, is that subject to having enough capacity water and sewer to do those?
Yes.
It has to be subject to that,
So
right?
if you're on public water, you would need approval from the water precinct.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, you need to, your well would handle it, and if for septic, you would
Septic
need
as
to
well.
get a design approved by the state, but you don't necessarily have to build a new, and that's only if you're short the number of bedrooms, whatever your septic is
Yeah.
designed for. If you have 3 bedrooms already in your home, and you're adding the ADU, and you have a 3-bedroom septic, then you're good. But if you have 2 bedrooms in your home and you're adding another bedroom and you only have a 2-bedroom septic, you need to get a design. They put it on file, and when your septic fails, this way you can just go in and be able to install a new septic,
Right.
because you've already had it designed approved.
okay, so our time is useful looking at the wording. Anything else that we want to look at between now and next month? One idea I did, and we don't have to talk about this second, but we have money earmarked that we don't use. And so if we don't use it, we should just not earmark it for us until we do have a reason, and then go back to the select board to ask for it. I see no reason why.
Yeah, I met with Derek
Okay.
today about the economic development's budget, and
Mhm.
so it's currently, so at one time you had 5,000. This past year, or this year we're in now, you have 2,500, and he's going to probably take a look at it to maybe reduce it some, but not completely eliminate it, just in case you need it for something.
I mean, I can't, I'm a big fan of economic development, but I've seen us accomplish very little. And so if we're looking for people to trust us with funds that come from taxpayers, I think we should reduce it significantly until we can find a real reason. And then I'll happily be the first one to go to a select board meeting and say, hey, we can actually accomplish something here, but we haven't, and so I think it would be okay to drop it down a little bit further.
And I agree with that. The only problem is that you only get that one chance, each year.
Yeah.
So you may not wanna wait a whole year to have nothing. You might wanna just have a little bit, just to be able
A
to.
little bit is
Yeah.
fine, but I'm like 5,000 certainly not,
Yeah.
2,500 we haven't used.
Yeah.
So I think it, down to 1,000, 500,
Yeah.
1,000 is fine. I have no issues with that, cause we don't know what to do with it.
Okay.
So,
Has the committee thought about surveying existing businesses to see how they can be better supported by this committee or by the
Yeah.
town?
we have not only thought about it, we've done it,
You've
reached
done
out in between, and the response rate, if I recall, was very, very low. So anecdotally speaking with business owners, they don't seem to necessarily need our help very often,
Okay.
or don't have the time to sit and talk with us at a meeting of what we can do. We've had a couple, I think, of really good people that have come in, but it's
And
their specific business only. It's not talking to the macro of economic development. And that's where I think, to Peter's point and what we've said before, we've got to focus on that macro if we
Right.
can.
We
Right.
posted a survey too,
Mm-hmm.
but we had a very low response. The people down at Hillsborough County Cooperative Extension helped us with that,
Nice.
but the response was so low, they really couldn't use the numbers.
Oh,
Right.
I think, and sometimes too, because we have Main Street in town too, the Main Street program, I see them as the people that should be working with the current business owners to help them, and I think that's their mission. But I really think, as you said, Chet, the bigger picture is what we're looking at. Because, to talk to somebody about their business, I certainly like to help them, but how does that help us with regard to raising more commercial tax base? I really think that should be more the focus for the town. That's the one place we're gonna raise revenues for the town, so that's why the development part is really the
yeah.
thing that
That's
I
the
like.
development part's the problem.
Right.
And there's not a whole lot of a whole lot of area to develop.
Right, so you wanna keep those
And-
sacred.
and, a good chunk of it was just taken by a 24-unit condo complex.
Mm-hmm.
And that property right next door is for sale also, so.
Have you looked at it? I'm just,
Yeah, sure.
trying to better understand the group. Have you looked at the master plan to see what your recommendations were? I mean, I know it's been since about 2020 or something.
They did for a while,
We
I
did.
don't remember what the outcome was, it was a while back, when it was first
Right.
adopted.
I'm only speaking for myself, I always keep that in mind, having worked on master plans way back when, not the most recent, but always keep that in mind because of those, again, we're limited, as Peter said, we're limited in where we can develop along our corridors, and that's been the issue with this town for ever and ever, to get tax base. We're not a Bedford, we're just not that.
And we also have a reputation, our planning board has a reputation of being difficult to deal with in some cases, so.
Yeah.
True.
I'll say it, everybody says
No,
it.
I agree.
So-
It's not a secret, so.
Nope.
We talked to a lot of developers to tell you the same thing, so.
Mhm. So we did, I kind of like when someone asks these questions because you can go back with what you tried, what worked and what didn't. And we did try to take a very intentional approach to coordinating different offices. But all we can do is recommend. We don't have any authority of any kind. But looking at why are some business owners saying, for instance, now I have this surprise sewer fee. Now, the fee itself is not necessarily the problem, but it's when a business comes in, it's like, oh, surprise, here's this new fee. You do sort of develop a reputation at that point that you're difficult to deal with, or you have these surprise fees that come up. So we did try to go in and do that. I think we had some challenges with getting that coordination. We could try something like that again, do another assessment. I know you helped me a lot with that the first time we did it. So we can definitely go back to looking at some of those things. I do think that as a council, we have to assess existentially our own value and what we're bringing to the table. So that might be another avenue. So we've got the larger sort of the articles that are coming through with some of the laws and the state reps, and then more locally we can look at what can we do right here to make sure there are no surprises for these potential you know, businesses that are trying to come into town. We could certainly do that as well. I think we'd take another look at that.
One thought too is the commission has a really good opportunity with brownfields. I know we worked with Goffstown property owners in the past, and we do have funding available, and that's usually for that phase 1, phase 2, you know, the site assessments for brownfields, even if it's just someone, you know, it's been a vacant parcel for a while, there's nothing may be wrong with it, but somebody's wondering, well, why isn't this developed? And that's, even that perception, it can become a brownfield site. And so that's one thing that's also available if this group wants, that's also Cam Perlman. He works on our team with the brownfields, and you know, if that's something of interest for this group, that in the next, I don't know, 6-8 months to figure out a potential property that might benefit from that funding. Because we're always looking.
What does the funding do?
It provides, let's say you're the property owner and you just bought this site and somebody says, you know, there was an old oil tank under there, or whatever it is, that maybe, plague is a strong word, that it casts a shadow over the property. The brownfields funding, if the property is eligible, then you're, it pays for the assessment of the experts to come in and assess the site and determine what's underground, what's in there, what's the soil. They do all sorts of testing, and then it might go to the next level. There's the next phase of that. So it can really help determine if there are any issues, and if there are some issues, they'll help with a plan on how to mitigate all of that kind of stuff.
So it essentially removes a barrier for someone who wants to
Yeah.
develop there as a business.
And
I think that's
I'm sure you
good.
were here when we did the I think it was right near the railroad or whatever, right in the vicinity here.
Down on Depot Street, maybe?
I think so, yeah, there were, yeah, it was like one, it kept growing, the parcels.
I think it might have been right before I started here.
It could,
But I heard
could have
about
been.
it.
Yeah, could have been. Anyway, that's a huge potential, and if Cam is available, I could have him speak to you on that November 5th.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
Wednesdays
but
are tricky for him, I'll just say that off.
I'm not sure what properties he would be looking at.
Yeah, we usually wait for the property owner to come to us. Usually the property owner is like, hey, I'm so excited about this. We had Londonderry just come to us. We're working with Manchester. We worked actually with a Francistown, believe it or not, the small town of Francistown. You know, their ski resort, they had a property there that just went through a phase 1. But Arms Park in Manchester just went through some stuff, and now I guess there's a property in Londonderry.
I'm just trying to think what property that would be affected here in town.
Yeah.
Nothing,
Yes.
where something was, you know, comes
trying
to
to
mind
think.
right away is the Budget gas station across from Cemetery Field out on Mass Road. It's a gas station now. I don't know, I really don't know who has that property, but to me, it's just would be an ideal spot to develop something differently. That place is open and closed, I don't know if they're in business half the time, but.
Somebody owns it that owns many other gas stations in
Okay.
Manchester and, you know, around the area.
But I guess my question would be if, let's say, somebody wanted to develop that other than a gas station.
Sure.
That would be would that be a
That'd be ideal.
brownfields type?
Yeah, that'd be ideal, especially if it's vacant or it hasn't been functioning for years.
Yeah, this one's still open.
Still, yeah, still going.
I don't understand, and working with these type of people all the time, a lot of times they don't wanna open up a can of worms.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it.
And maybe, you know, I'm not sure if St. A's and 114, if that property had issues, it was a catering company, I wouldn't think that they would have anything.
What
Some
was
old
it?
grease.
What was it before that, do you know?
Depend on what they were
Before
making.
catering company, I don't think it was anything.
No.
It was,
Just Woods,
you mean that old property, what it was?
Yeah.
Wasn't
before
that a,
Martin's Catering.
Yeah, Martin.
No,
Catering,
before
yeah.
that though.
Oh,
you know?
before that, I don't know.
No.
I mean, that goes back to the sixties or late
Even
60s.
before your time. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, your idea makes me think more about, so maybe not just sort of the brownfield site issue, but us taking the time over the next couple of months to develop a resource list. I would like to get queued up or notified or somehow there's a trigger when someone comes in to say, start a new business, that we know who they are. Maybe we can ask the boards to see if they'd be interested in talking to us after we've developed this. I don't want them, if they talk to us now, we wouldn't have much, but if we develop a resource list for them, and also work with the town offices on how to streamline some of the information for somebody. I think you'd agree with this. A lot of times it's, I wanna do this, I come in, I see barriers, now I'm like, I'm gonna go somewhere else.
It's always been like that, though.
Right, right.
Well, a lot of times, like, I think that's improved, the coordination part of it,
Mhm.
because we've been better about communicating with each other. But what I saw recently, do you remember where, well, you know where McDonald's is, across the street, there's that building that was a florist for a short time?
Mhm.
Well, there must have been 5 or 6 different people that came in, we met with them, sometimes we had a TRC with them, and, you know, we sent them away saying, you need to do this, and, well, the property owner had to do certain things to the furnace and a couple of other things that the fire department had asked for. And so each time he had a tenant, and they would come see us, and we would pretty much keep saying the same thing, and then nothing happened, and they would walk away. So we have a new one now, there's a TRC meeting next Tuesday, where another person's coming in for something, and supposedly they've made the improvements, but we need to check with the fire department, obviously, to make sure that that's occurred. But, so a lot of times it's the landlord themselves who aren't doing what they're being told to do, and then so the tenant walks away, and then somebody else comes along, and the whole process starts all over again. And I don't know whether they think we forget or what, but.
I'm not sure if you worded that properly, though. It's not what they're being told to do it in order to have somebody in there.
Right,
And if they decide not to put anybody in there, then they'll have to do it.
Mhm.
That's a difference.
well, right.
So, you know.
So
And,
that they,
as
the
a
building.
requirement to rent that piece of property, they need to do this. And if they don't do it, they can't rent it, so they say, okay, say la vie, I'm not gonna rent it, cause I'm not gonna put $10,000 into it, which
But
is
then
gonna-
they continue to advertise it for rent, so we keep getting people coming in. It's like this hamster on the wheel.
I get it, I know how he is, we've dealt with him before, right?
So anyway, hopefully this one will work out, because I'm hearing that he did the work, so we'll see, you know, the board, not the board, but the TRC committee will talk to them on Tuesday.
Who's the TRC committee? Who
Technical Review Committee.
But who's on,
Sets you up for
who,
planning.
So it's made up of representatives from police, fire, engineering, sewer, sometimes water will come, not usually, but sometimes.
Planning.
Planning, building, and assessing. And did I say sewer? And sewer.
I'm just throwing it out, why wouldn't economic development have a role in that?
Well, because I'm there for
Okay,
already,
okay.
so,
yeah,
yeah.
all right.
but
You
I mean, did
represent-
you mean
you
someone
represent
from the
planning.
committee?
Well, no, just saying,
'Cause
because
they
it seems as
could
though
be
that's where
invited.
we, if there's people looking to come into town to do business, I
Yeah.
mean, we were talking about the ones that were here already, and yeah, certainly I'd like to help them, but the people that want to come in and rent property or build a building or
Right.
whatever, we should be a resource for them. And I think we started that, right? We were talking about the website to be, go to one place where that might direct them to what they have to, the steps they have to do.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I think that's the kind of thing economic development should be involved in.
So you're
Is
saying.
it good, you know, is this business gonna be good for our,
So are you saying someone from the committee itself, we would need to include that in our regulations, so that would be a change that the planning board could make?
I'm not saying,
But I understand what you're saying, you wanna get our 2 cents in,
see,
okay? But think about what's the stuff that the people who are on it now, they're all public departments that have public safety and, you know, the sewer, water and stuff. It's not a wish type committee, it's a hard.
it's hard, it's
Yeah.
technical.
Technical.
It's all
Yeah, it's a technical
Okay.
stuff, it's not a wish list type thing.
No, and that was that's the reason, but Joanne's on there basically representing us as well, because she's got the development piece in mind.
I think, if, I might be wrong, but my understanding is she kinda coordinates that meeting. and-
Yeah,
and
No, you-
this-
I'd share it.
Yeah.
Okay.
so she's-
All right. No, I didn't really know who was involved. I mean, I knew that they took place, but I didn't know who was really involved in it.
Yeah.
So that's really the hardcore.
Does police have any concern, fire have any concern, you know,
Yeah.
DPW, things like that,
Right.
you know.
Right,
So
engineering.
they all get a copy of, whether it's a plan or an application, you know, depending on what the business is, a week ahead, so that they can review it and come prepared
okay.
for the meeting.
All right, so that pretty much, I mean, yeah, I guess that's where I'm thinking of, that you give somebody that packet, so that comes from you
Yeah.
anyway, that helps them, hopefully helps them get ready for that type of meeting.
But we're in the process of redoing our regulations, so if this committee wants to have representation above just me being there, just let me know and we could add it to the list.
Only because, to their point, these are
Yeah.
the regulations that you have to follow. It's not about anything else other than that. But I do think I know we can't show favor to a certain contractor or to a certain business. But an idea, I think if you're someone coming in from out of town, out of the state maybe, you find out at this TRC or planning, hopefully TRC first, that you have all these things you have to do, then it might help if they get some sort of a resource list from us. Like, these are people locally who can help you fix that furnace or
see-
help you do
Oh,
that whole
I
thing.
We, as staff, are not allowed to
Right.
give out
But-
names of
Neither should we.
contractors or anything like that.
No, we can't give a whole resource list without showing favor to one as opposed to the other.
Right. You wouldn't wanna do that, cause then,
It
this
feels
is
very
what you guys
handcuffing.
told me, that you guys suggested I hire this person,
Yep,
and it's screwed up now.
now reliable, or they could say that.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can hold us,
Nah.
I like your idea of the resource list, but just a little bit different angle. It'd be like, well, here's the site plan review, this is what this is about, this is the technical review committee, this is what this is about. So sort of that, or like a state, here's the Chamber of Commerce, just different resources that are just out there versus, hey, here's your plumber. Cause I think,
Right.
I agree, you'll never be good that way.
But I think in all reality, I do understand what you're saying and actually agree with what you're saying, but I think in all reality, in the development portion, if you're trying to bring in a business, that's where you get caught up. You go to this TRC, you get wildly overwhelmed in many cases unless you've done this before. And then where do I go from here? And I think that's, after hearing your explanation, I agree with you, but I wish there was a way we could find a way to help them figure out, okay, local resources for you to be able to actually follow through and get some quotes and do all the things you need to do to satisfy the requirements of a life safety and satisfy the all the things that they're told they're now required to do.
well, that's what TRC does, TRC says you need to have this, 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 and this.
Right. And that's where they get caught up. They leave that meeting all the time going like, oh my God, where do I go?
That's-
Do
It
they,
doesn't
do
matter.
they, Joanne? Well, I think at that point, they have an engineer, right, they have
It
guidance.
depends what it is, like the woman coming in Tuesday, I mean, obviously, she doesn't have an engineer, she's just a business owner, small business owner, I should preface, going into you know, a little shop where she wants to start up a business. She doesn't need an engineer for that. But most people who come in have an engineer, and they come to the meeting with them.
Right.
They don't come by themselves.
Yeah.
It depends on what it is. Like a pizza place owner, he would just come in by himself and say, you know, this is what I want to do, and what do I need, and
And
that kind
fire
of thing.
would say you need this, and
Fire is the one with the
Yeah.
biggest list.
Always.
Yeah.
planning would say you need this many parking spaces, you know,
Yeah.
you know, all that kind of stuff, that's what TRC does. It's, you know, here's my plan, well, your plan is as it is, but it doesn't quite meet what you need to do, that's.
Right.
I tell you, not every community has this. I think it's really a great step for the community that they even have the process. Often it's, you know, they have to have already plans developed, and even if there's conceptual, they're pretty detailed and they've already sunk a ton of change into it. This is very nice, it's open-ended, they have all these resources right in front of them, all these different people that they can ask questions to. I think it's a great process.
That is great.
That you have.
I always tell them to take advantage of the people in the room because they're there to help you.
Right.
So, you know, don't leave thinking, you know, that you haven't, that all your questions, that you don't want to ask them too much. Like, make sure all your questions are answered before you leave. And we don't charge anything for it, so it's just part of our job.
It's really an awesome process, really.
It is. I would take advantage of it if I was.
And they
Bring
can,
something in.
and if somebody went to the EDC website right now, it would say those things?
So TRC is not part of EDC, so TRC is under the planning department
Right.
website. But if you go to EDC, I believe there is a chain of, you know, if you're doing this,
Yeah.
do you need this, or do you need that, kind of, I think we have a flow chart on
I
there.
think we talked about that
Yeah.
last year maybe,
Yeah, I think
but
it's up there.
that's what
I haven't
I'm
looked for a
just,
while,
I'm
but-
curious because, you know, I think it's a great service. I didn't know all those people were involved, but if
Yeah.
somebody is on the outside looking in, whether they're coming from somewhere else out of town, developer, and they say, well, these resources are available to us.
Currently, TRC is not mandatory, and with this updated regulations, we are going to make it mandatory. Again, it doesn't mean we're gonna charge for it, it just
Right,
means
just
that
to-
we want everyone to go there if they're doing, you know, a subdivision, a site plan, or
Mhm.
probably nothing more than that, like not a lot line adjustment or something simple, but
Right.
and then the staff actually gets to decide, does this need to go to planning board? Like the woman on Tuesday most likely will not, because she's going into an existing space that's had retail in there just previously. And she has enough parking and all of that, so
Mhm.
that won't be a problem, but the certain businesses, you know, would need it, because if they're increasing the intensity of the use, or they need more parking than what's available. And then the businesses along the Main Street area, the Village Commercial, we can't hold them to the parking requirements of other businesses, because there's nothing available other than the public parking lots. So we have a way of cutting back on those. I think it requires a waiver by the planning board to not require as many spaces.
That parking piece.
It's either a waiver or it's just automatic, I can't remember which, but, yeah, so they don't get held up just because they don't have enough parking spaces.
Okay. So I think what I wanna do between now and next month, we do certainly look at what the wording, for the article, but also, when I think about all the other boards that we're talking about, they all vote, they make resolutions, they accomplish something usually in that meeting, so I'm trying to figure out what our function and our role is, and I'll think about that quite a bit and bring that in. And I'm hoping maybe other people can think about that too. Obviously, our function and our role is development, but it does appear that we run into our own barriers when we figure out how do we actually apply that practically. I think that's something that we face and have faced for years. So I'd like to look at that, and then hopefully, Joanne, by the time you're back, we've had that discussion, and then when you come back, we sort of present that, say, this is what we think we should be doing, and then get your feedback when you return. Anything else, any other ideas on what we should be doing?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so too.
We've identified properties that are available, or people that, what's going on with them, so.
Yep,
And that some of them are usable, and some of them for certain things, and some of them are not, you know?
yep, yep.
We-
All right,
And Sylvia will be a resource while you're,
Yeah,
while
she'll
you're.
be working 16 hours a week here if
Okay.
needed.
Good.
And, you know, I'll give you her email, so
Thank
you'll
you.
have that. And
So
I'll
she's
give-
overseeing the roles that you're in
Yes.
right now with planning and?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll give her your emails, and
Perfect.
she'll be here for your next meetings. Typically, I put together their agenda and then just email it out to them with any attachments that you may
Question
need.
for you, would you like, Cam to provide you for the Facebook page info on any business that might be interested in the brownfields?
Sure.
Oh, yeah,
Because that's,
You may know of some already, you mean, right? And I know the state has a map that has all of the hazardous, like, you know, underground tanks that they know of, and places that had gas stations previously and all of that. Like, there may be something out there that the state knows of, of some properties that may have been contaminated at one point in time.
It could be that property in Grassmere, I don't know what he ever did with the tanks, they used to have gas there.
The corner
at
store
the
there.
central, at the general store?
Yeah, they used to have gas there.
Mhm.
I used to have to walk up there and get gas for my lawnmower. My dad would send me, go get gas, give me 50 cents.
all right.
yeah,
Well, that's it.
Yes.
Anything else for this particular meeting?
Just that
Yeah.
we're gonna meet on the 5th, and we are going to talk about what's gonna happen on the 6th, or
6th.
our recommendations.
Yep.
Okay.
And then vote and hopefully send it along so that we have a say,
Okay.
or at least our input is included, so for sure.
May I suggest that we get that ahead of time?
You said you'd send it to us,
Oh,
right?
The bill?
bill?
Yeah, I'll send that out tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
there it is. In a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, and that
And
concludes
good
our
luck-
meeting. Thank you.
And good luck